Hello. Innovation and collaboration are great for people who know they have something to offer. Collaboration and innovation ask us to be available, maybe even vulnerable. And to be available, we must know and trust the value we have to offer. This is the beginning of sacred exchange, because relationships are pure collaboration. And they carve a path for innovation. Very good. Sacred exchange is the craft of erotically conscious, clearly developed, mutually practiced relationship dynamics that return more energy mutually than they demand individually, and economy in relationships. In sacred exchange, power struggle becomes power exchange, and with that, freedom. Do you think that you are available to offer your most valuable contribution in your relationships? Do you think that deserving or not deserving might cause power struggles in your relationships? I'll share my story, and I invite you to take away a piece that makes a difference for you tonight. I am Tanya Brakeman. My devotion and the promise of my life is that all human beings experience themselves as a valuable part of the whole, that they are free to connect and contribute authentically. For a lifetime, I've been a student of how human beings interact, and I'm always intrigued by how and why we use each other's resources. When I say erotic, I mean this. And when we tend to think of the erotic as an easy, tantalizing sexual arousal, that's not what I'm talking about. I speak of the erotic as the deepest life force, a force which leads us toward living in a fundamental way. When we respect our own erotic value and honor our life force, we can powerfully access and influence relationships intentionally. Relying on deserving or not deserving creates assumptions about the way I should be treated, which blinds us from consciously accessing what's right in front of us, while covertly assuming what we don't have consent to. This is the major cause of division in relationships. Someone winds up feeling deceived or used, usually the result of assumptions, which damages confidence and trust, which fosters intolerance and avoidance. Restored dignity permits us to use our relationships as resources with respect. Lets us hear no without being minimized. Lets us be truly available, not that nice yes, but really means maybe when I think it'll gain me favor. For decades of my life, assumption and deserving did the driving, and 36 years had passed before I felt I had anything valuable to offer. My mother at 17 was a feisty dreamer who secretly hitchhiked from Colorado to Oklahoma to get her degree and become an author. At 21, she was the secret and terrified mother of 3. She married my father out of her fear and shame just 2 weeks before I was born. He was active duty in Vietnam, already a father of 2. She was now sentenced to a life she deserved. She passed far too young, at 48. Unhappily remarried, and my 10-year-old sister grew up without mom. At 19, knowing exactly how not to repeat my mother's mistakes because my value crisis was cured by saying yes to marriage, not because I was pregnant, but because I was determined to live a life I deserved. At 36, I was a single mom of 5, with 1 inadequate income, aching for a solution to my now sentenced life. From 19 to 40, life was a drama of shame-avoiding escapes, with shoulds called husbands as the remedy, attempting to avoid a life of servitude I didn't want, while pretending to be a wife, which was more to me like a sentence. Life looked more like my mother's than not, in spite of my attempt at rebellion, and after my second divorce, a coworker introduced me to a program. It profoundly changed my view of what was possible. His contribution gave me the hope I was looking for. My dream job was unveiled. I was training to be a coach and a public speaker from Idaho, but knowing within the year that I would need to move to Seattle to finish, I told my kids of my plan to move. With their support and assurance, they said it would be fine. The year went by, and when I said I was afraid to leave, my 16-year-old daughter said, "Why?" I said, "Well, I'm pretty sure your dad will say I'm a bad mom, and I'm afraid you'll think so too." She threw her head back, laughed, and said, "Mom, that's hysterical. We know you, we love you, you belong in Seattle, and Dad can't stand you, so why would you care what he thinks?" 2 weeks later, I was in Seattle. Original desire was revealed through leadership training in my work with Seattle Sex Positive community. I recognized how shame and not deserving had crippled my sense of dignity and began to honor my original desires. Original drive became available as true direction. I saw my natural strengths and weaknesses as complete and an integrated system of real power. I learned to honor my own boundaries and the difference between being forced or free. Natural discipline developed organically by my own wisdom to create practices aligned for what I was committed to. Natural devotion now uses me, not by having to prove my value, but by sharing it freely. My life's promise is now the most valuable resource I have to offer the world in sacred exchange. I was 40 before I knew I could turn my fear to freedom and intentionally experience and express my desires. Now I can surrender power struggles for power exchange and transform relationships from pure desire to play big with power and freedom. I invite you, not later, but now, to Revel. Learn what erotic values move and drive you. See your unique offering in the world. Trust yourself with who you want to influence and why. Revel, the Audacity of Ecstasy, is designed for men and women ready to exchange assumption for intention, deserving for dignity, and to restore the power of true desire and sacred exchange in our culture. Now, at 46 years old, I'm proud to still be a mother of 5, still not a wife, and am delighted to be a passionate entrepreneur, coach, and visionary, and free to collaborate and revel with you.